Hello, everyone. Hello, hello, hello. So here we are at the final session before we start our talent fair, really going over, my goodness, what did we learn and what did we do today? So in the feed, I'd just like to kind of kick off and kind of go back, perhaps just a little bit, to the two questions in which we started this journey in terms of what do you want to learn and what do you want to experience. So if you in the chat would be so kind as to what has stuck with you? So as you think over the last 6 hours that we've spent together, what's going on in your brains? So what stuck with you? What did you learn? I can say that, here, the imposter syndrome really doing a lot of reflection. I couldn't agree more. I think it was a very, very honest talk. So huge kudos and thank you. Yep, I'm still processing. Absolutely, couldn't agree more. And it's interesting, Here, also Trond was talking about we oftentimes we have the perfectness and learning is messy. The question was there, learning can be fast, but what if you don't understand, or what if you have questions? And as we look to how the world of work is going forward and how are we going into those brave spaces of experimenting, and a little bit back to that quote from this morning from Adam Grant, what is the difference between a performance culture and a learning culture? It really comes back to that aspect of how are we understanding that our curiosity is a strength, and that aspect of playfulness, of discovery, of putting things together in different ways that we perhaps didn't think about before, and giving ourselves that freedom to go into that brave space of challenging some of our paradigms and also some of the boxes of our own making. So I couldn't agree more. I think this, as we look to the science of learning and understanding that aspect of what is possible, it was also interesting, I thought, also with Paul, around how is psychological safety, and I like to say psychological bravery instead of safety, so that, how can you challenge? How can you go out of that? Am I good enough? Or, is this, am I going to be, I don't want to say punished or rewarded. It's just that aspect of what are those anticipatory feelings. So getting into that place of play, and we're going to be exploring that tomorrow particularly as we look to social learning, how at times do we get in our own way, and how can we really be conscious about getting out of our own way. So here, how are we getting prepared for the future? It's going into that brave space of play and fun, new combinations, and thinking things through. So we started out really around looking at here, self-directed learning, that it's a process in which individuals take the initiative with or without the help of others in diagnosing their learning needs, formulating learning goals, identifying human and material resources for learning, choosing and implementing appropriate learning strategies, and evaluating those learning outcomes. You remember perhaps we had that quote of, I asked you, which time was this from? Was this from the 1930s? We got it in 1890. So this aspect of how are we upskilling and reskilling, it's going into that vulnerable space in learning to be able to understand. So, everybody is vulnerable in a learning situation. So how are we dealing with that vulnerability out of that curiosity aspect is a very different approach. And so as we think about today, and as we think about that next session that we're going to be inviting you into, is we have an area that in the arena where we're drawing attention to different learning opportunities. So I can't tell you how much learning that we have had as a team and group as L&D Cares, and particularly the awesome L&D Cares pit crew. You have no idea what's going on in WhatsApp in terms of coordination, but it's that aspect of, how are we leaning on each other? How are we learning? How are we stepping into doing things that are perhaps a little bit outside of our comfort zone, but being in that support and that camaraderie of having fun and that playfulness to say, how can we learn? That brings it back, because I like this quote as well, is remember this, you're in this class because you don't know the subject. And we started this entire week about, here, how are we moving from dependence to independence? And what does that look like? And one of the key pieces of independence before we can go into interdependence is taking the time to take stock as to where are we now and where are we looking to go, and giving ourselves that space that we don't have to be perfect at it the first time. So again, one of the things that we're trying to do with the L&D Cares is give each other a brave and safe space. We're 100% volunteers. This is when we can't experiment here in this group. Where in the world can we experiment? So we invite you to come in to see, here, where might there be an opportunity for you to tap in, be it via one of the wonderful cohorts, be it through the Discord community, etc., be it through these table chats. There was a wonderful table chat here during the social lounge. So keeping on with those things around learning via conversation, and then reflecting back as to what does this mean for me? What does this mean for my story around what I want to do next? So there for that piece. And joining me on stage. Wonderful. So Michelle and Saira, very good. Wonderful to have you two both here.
Yes, we just learned the lesson of don't schedule yourself on back-to-back-to-back sessions because you will. And I hate being late.
Well, you have, Michelle, I mean, seriously, that you were hosting duty, then did 2 sessions in terms of unlocking potential. I mean, kudos, honey. Impressive.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So Michelle, I'm just going to stick with you because you've been talking a lot, and since you're in that flow, as you look back and reflect upon today, what are some of those key learnings for you, and what are you taking with you?
Well, I think the biggest thing is, wow, I love the mindset and skill track that we did because it had a lot of synergies. I mean, as we looked at the day, all the sessions really flowed together. We started with, hey, how do I approach learning for myself? How do I orient myself? How do I go through and do that wayfinding? And then how do I actually engage in that learning process? And you saw that picked up throughout the day of orienting yourself. Oh, great. Morgan is talking about, how do I self-assess myself against this capability model so I know where to go? So hers was all about that orienting. And then we had Ken Phillips talking about his session of how do I assess myself. We had some different aspects there. So really, how do you provide that opportunity? My sessions on incorporating those brain hacks. So how do you test yourself and see how much you really know? And then Paul and Richard's sessions were really focused on how do we make sure that that engagement is there, whether it's through storytelling or the measurement of psychological safety and immersion. Really talked about that. And then, Kevin's session was really talking through we are all in a culture renovation right now. And what is that kind of baby steps that we can start taking to really shift how we think about our cultures and how we move those forward from another perspective. So I just love the synergies between the sessions. And I think probably like participants, I was like, dang it, I want to be in both.
Exactly. Yeah. Wonderful curation to both of you. I love it. Jennifer.
I would just echo what Michelle just said, how everything just really flowed together. Every time I went into a session, somebody would talk about something that, that had been talked about earlier, and it just reinforced, where we're going, and how we make this, how we, help ourselves develop. And that wayfinding, was so helpful. And I think that's really kind of where we landed today, was with the wayfinding. We've oriented, but now where do we go? How do we really dig in and apply? And, I love what Elaine Beek said earlier today about, Orville Wright didn't have a pilot's license.
Yes.
No, he just got in the plane and flew it. Probably wouldn't get away with that today, but
exactly. Brandon might have something to say.
Yeah, but just jump in, and listening to Laura here at the end, closing out the day, talking about our thinking habits and shifting our thinking habits, and just do something, pick something and go. Yeah.
Get that hurdle rate different. Saira.
Sorry, I'm so distracted by the comments on the right. Oh, well, what can I say? I mean, Michelle and Jennifer have summed it up, as have you, Liz. It's been an amazing experience. Although for me, I was going in and out of sessions, but hey, I had my notepad and I made notes for so many things, so many books and resources. And I love that we had all the speakers talk about several topics. I also attended the wellness session where I did some chair yoga. I don't know who else was on it, but I think it was it's been a great mix to hear some of the concepts and then some skills on the side. So yeah, that's what I'd say.
I love it. Okay, now I'm really curious about chair yoga. I'm gonna check that one out. Well, I love it. Well, I can't express my gratitude enough to all of the speakers and all of the attendees. Like I said, the discussions that have been going on have been so rich and so honest. And I think it is that aspect that we really do take that time to take the stock, to go back to those priming questions of what do I want to learn and what do I want to experience, and just letting today settle a bit as we go, and we, maybe it will be tomorrow morning underneath the shower where something will go click. And that's part of the beauty of learning, is giving yourself that space. So I'm so excited. A huge debt of gratitude to both you, Jennifer and Michelle. Awesomely done. I really appreciate it. And we are going to be going into the final piece of today, and we'll be starting that session very soon to explain how the talent fair is going to work. Correct?
Yep. And shameless plug, this is a great opportunity for you to get into a lot of what Laura and I were talking about, is how do you get in the habit of really quickly starting to apply that learning, rather than feeling like I need to learn and plan and do a whole lot more before I can start talking about this. That will be a great way for you to start going through and, sharing your insights with others, having conversations about those things that are still rolling around in your head or that you might want to change.
So awesome. I love it. All righty. So with that, thank you, everybody. We'll see you in the next session to explain how the talent fair is going to work, and then we're going to run into the arena. Correct?
Yes.
All right. They're keeping me honest. All right.
Right.